6, run 4, and a max of 3 to score. That is the course. That is the longer lap. So that is the lap that will be used. So it'll be interesting to see how they go, but we'll get an idea of how the team competition is shaking out after a lap or two. Reminder that they will currently have the stretch run between the start line. It's a good stretch down to the finish line. I think it's 130 meters, and then they will have 3 laps of just over 1,800 meters to sort themselves out. 5,260 meters in total is the race distance. Away they go for the under-20 women's race at the European Champions Clubs Cross Country. And as I mentioned, 130 meters down to the finish, 3 laps, and it is a very typically Portuguese course in terms of it is tight, it is technical, it is fast, it loops back on itself. It's great for spectators because it's very easy to follow the action, much like the course was at the European Cross Country Championships back in December in Lagoa. Still just ahead, but it's not a decisive lead, is it, at the moment? It's just about 2 seconds, I'd say it's at there, going off the visuals on screen. As we see Kitty Scott there back in 3rd, and then the 2 Fenerbahce athletes, Jobas and Boiras, back in 4th, well, joint 4th really at the moment, and then Katie Pye of Aldershot, Farnham District, just back in 6th. But there is the crucial one going through the screen there, Elif Akcicek in 9th place for Fenerbahce. That's the one that could secure them the team title, because look there, Sabrina Johansson of Aldershot is just 1 place behind. So Aldershot versus Fenerbahce here. It is England against Turkey in the battle for team honours. But who's it going to be? Because a lot could change over this last 600 metres or so, as they're very much en route back towards the finish now. And let's see if Sandra Fernandez can hang on for Atletica Lucense. Up front, the Spaniard, it is 2 Spaniards, and it looks like Fernandez, I think, is going to be strong enough, because if anything, that gap is growing back to Grau, and that is a brilliant shot there from behind, utilising the drones as she starts running downhill to emerge from that kind of tree wooded area. Sandra Fernandez is looking good, is looking strong. She was the most aggressive athlete in this race in terms of her tactics, and she's certainly making the best of her way home here. And that gap is just growing and growing and growing, if anything. So back in 2nd, Mara Grau is giving very honest chase there and doing her best, but as she rounds the final turn, just that 90-degree turn that takes them into the straight, that means there's just about 130 meters left once they do straighten up. And a smile breaks out, so they pass that start line. And Sandra Fernandez will know that it's only 130 meters from there to the finish. She takes a look around, but that is a look that will give her great delight and euphoria amidst the agony of a cross-country race, a little over 5 kilometers. Sandra Fernandez, one last look to make sure of it, and it is now sure. She is going to be the under-20 individual champion at the European Champion Clubs Cross Country. Sandra Fernandez of Atletica Lucense comes home just ahead of her fellow Spaniard Mara Grau of Playas de Castellón, and then it is Ayan Jobas of Fenerbahce who came through very strongly back in 3rd, and it was Katie Pye came through to be actually the leading athlete from Aldershot Farnham District back in 4th. Has turned out to be the battle for overall team victory at the European Champion Clubs Cross Country under 20. Again, to me, it does look like Fenerbahce have finished on 20 points, are confirmed. They will edge it on countback via their 3rd place scorer by a matter of inches over Aldershot Farnham District. As we see, confirmation, it is a Spanish 1-2 individually. Sandra Fernandez of Atletica Lucense takes victory, takes gold, 20.05 ahead of Mara Grau and Aitan Jobas, the leading Fenerbahce athlete, back in 3rd in the team event. And next up, it's going to be the under 20. It's going to be the under 20 men's race over the same distance. He'll have his eyes on a medal, and at least better compete with the nations that do have superior depth. Just perhaps levels the playing field just a little. But this looks like a very swift start for the under 20 men's race. There were a total of 85 athletes on the entry sheet, but expect about something in around the 70 mark, 75, to actually have towed the line. Now, as they pass through the finish line for the first time, we'll get a better idea who's to the fore here. And it is a pretty swift start at the moment, and you can see there some of the athletes here who are towards the front. Alejandro Mateo of SC Braga is featuring strongly. Alex Pereira of Vicky Foods, and then Gabriela Licini of Valle Bramblana is also in there. Mustafa Kaya as well of Fenerbahce. Look at him back towards 6th or 7th or so he is now in that. Beautifully kept, as we see it is Kuma Fraile out front there. Callum Toomey back in 2nd as they pass through 1250 meters. And as you can see, that leading pack probably about 20 strong now at the moment. But Kula Samuel Barrios Fraile, 18-year-old Spaniard, he was 50th at the World Cross Country. As we see there, Kuma Fraile just ahead of Callum Toomey, and Denise Ferreira, it is back in 3rd there, the Portuguese athlete. But now that they have gone through just over a lap, we'll get a much better idea of how the team standings are shaking out, because as you can see, it is starting to splinter up front. And it is splintering in a big way, and it is that man, Kuma Samuel Barrios Fraile. And it is Franklin Cabet of Sporting Club de Portugal who is pressing on at the front. So he sat back through the opening lap there, did Franklin Cabet. And he's very much announced himself to the fore at the moment. So, midway through lap 2 here. And it looks like this race, as a contest individually, has very much been put to bed by Franklin Cabet, the World Under-20 cross-country champion. He finished 2nd in the Kenyan cross-country championships last year, in 2025. And he is now coming through past the finish line with 1 lap to run. Franklin Cabet really does look a class apart here in this field, but of course, as we mentioned, that would be no surprise given his recent accomplishments. That World Under-20 cross-country title, it is such a tough title to win, but he did it. But up front, it's all about Franklin Cabet, who has turned on the style. He's aware of his surroundings there. You can just see him looking to his left, and he's hearing those shouts, no doubt, from some of the club coaches. Franklin Cabet, running for Sporting Club de Portugal, is putting on a clinic here with that surge in the 2nd lap. The athletes will have known all about his ability. He bided his time. He kept things very much under control on the opening lap, but he has injected a big one in the lap 2, and he's on his way to victory, and looks like on their way to silver and bronze medals are Guillaume Sanz of Playas de Castellón and Callum Toomey of Denor Harriers. But no doubt about who's going to come home in front. It is going to be Franklin Cabet, barring disaster. He is comfortably clear. Cabet has really turned on the style here. He is just, as you can see, the Sands and Toomey not yet in the shot. That's a measure of just how far he has pulled clear. Franklin Cabet. As we see, it is Sands there in 2nd. Toomey is hanging on back in 3rd, but Denise Ferreira of Sporting Club de Portugal back in 4th. And it is Alex Pereira and Afonso Gomez back in 5th and 6th. And we see there Rhys Johnson of Denor Harriers back in 9th. Charlie Neal back in 11th. So they're packing very well in that team event. But Playas de Castellón are also packing very well. You see there down in 16th, Alejandro Juan. I think he is their third man. Is he their fourth man? I'm not sure, but they were just in front, 4 points clear with a lap to run, Playas de Castellon. But the Nor Harriers are close enough, and Callum Toomey has had a big final lap by the looks of things, but he's hanging on at the moment for an individual bronze as Franklin Quebec goes up and over that little bump there. And here we are around the final turns here. Into the home straight. There it is. There's the start line. That means 130 metres to go for Franklin Quebec, the World Under-20 cross-country champion, who has just put on a clinic here for Sporting Club de Portugal. He looks well under control, and look at the speed he is moving at towards the finish. So welcome him back as the individual champion. He is turning on the jets as he goes to the finish. Franklin Quebec, your under-20 men's champion at the European Champion Clubs cross-country. Guillaume Sands across the line, arms aloft, and then it is Denis Ferreira of Sporting Club de Porto. I think is going to be good enough to take gold in the team event. We know for certain where the individual goal is going, and it is of course to Franklin Quebec. And now we'll get an official look at the results and hopefully confirmation of our 3 team medalists. There it is, Franklin Quebec running for Sporting Club de Portugal, 16:53. What an exhibition that was. Guillaume Sands takes the silver medal, Playas de Castellon, 17:34, and then Denis Ferreira, brilliant run from him, Sporting Club de Portugal. 2 spots on the podium individually, 17:37 for third. But now things get even more serious because we're moving on up to the senior category, and we're going to have 5 long laps here, plus the little bit that takes them towards the finish to start off with, of Amabah costing them dearly. But you would suspect, given her accomplishments, that the way Amabah was running with that 29-29 10k, it would have turned this race into a bit of an individual procession, similar to what we saw in that under-20 men's race. But now it is very much a wide open race, and there are plenty of athletes, as we see an absolute dash for the first turn there by one of the athletes, who is quite keen to get away, I would imagine, from this field, but certainly no need really at this level over a distance like this, which is 9,280 metres. Perhaps go out that hard because it is a nice wide course. 600, 800 metres into this race or so. Nicole Reina also up there as well from ASD Caivano. Eloise Laigle of DMA. And Carolina Campos also in there as well from Bilbao. And looking back through the field, just seeing the vest of Live LAC there. There's a couple of Live vests running together. The leader among them there is Michelle Finn. She's back in about 15th at the moment. Of course, who's a 2-time Olympian in 2016 and in 2021. So, and is Deria Kunur as well has joined them. So Fenerbahce with, well, I suppose it's quite aggressive tactics, putting 4 in the top 11, 12 through the opening kilometre or so, opening mile. But they are now steadily marching towards the front. And Elvini Nimbona as well of ASD Caivano making her presence felt towards the front. She's just drifting up there on the left. But it is Jacqueline Rotich of Sporting Club Braga and Miriam Cherop as well, the Kenyan back in second. But it is quite tightly packed together here at the moment. And then it is Laura Taborda back in 16th. So it's a very interesting team race developing here, because if you add 16 and about 4 for our leading duo, Sporting Club Braga with about 20 points, but Fenerbahce are going to be in the low 20s at the moment. There are 3 athletes in about 7th and then 9th and 10th or so. Sporting Club Braga, who's going to be their 3rd athlete, she's up to 12th at the moment. So Sporting Club Braga with 20 points or so. As we see there, Miriam Cherop of Kenya. And she is at the front at the moment, 23 minutes or so. There is Machado And Machado there just hanging on just ahead of Deria Kunur of Fenerbahce. Fenerbahce, of course, I mentioned how well they were packing earlier. They have 3 in the top 10 at the moment in that team battle. And then looking back down, Mariana Machado down in 6th. And then Laura Taborda, perhaps the star, in terms of a pound for pound effort. Laura Taborda would not be as accomplished as Jacqueline Rotic or indeed her clubmate Mariana Machado. But Taborda now up inside the top 10. And I mentioned so often, it's about how strong is your weakest link in cross country. How high can you get your final placed finisher? And Laura Taborda is anything but weak today. She has battled her way up into the top 10, and that's what's making the difference. That's why Sporting Club de Braga look to be on their way to victory in the team event, but much can change over this final kilometre. It looks like the battle for individual honours is going to be won by Kenya's Miriam Sherop, but Sporting Club Braga's Jacqueline Rotic, she's leading the way in the European Champion Clubs cross country. Elvini Nimbona of ASD Caivano then back in 3rd overall, and Carolina Campos of Bilbao leading that Bilbao 1-2 along with Adera Suarez. So Bilbao, if they could get their 3rd athlete up to inside the top 10, they would be able to challenge Sporting Club Braga for team victory. But at the moment, with that estimated tally, unconfirmed of course, haven't reached a finish yet, but 15 points is a simply remarkable tally for 3 athletes in cross country, and they look well on their way to victory, as indeed in the overall race does Miriam Sherop of Kenya. There is a shot of Jacqueline Rotic of Sporting Club de Braga as we see Sherop has just turned on the jets, turned on the style, and that is a very swift and sudden acceleration. She injected there, just under a lap to run, and the Kenyan, this is the final turn. She runs past that start line, 130 metres to run from there, and it is going to be a bit of a procession for Miriam Sherop as she runs towards the finish. Slightly downhill, there's some just people out in the course directing her where to go. Just swing out to her right there. Only about 60 metres left now or so for Miriam Sherop, and the run of honour as she runs towards the finish in the Almond Blossom International Cross Country. It is going to be Kenya's Miriam Sherop takes victory with ease. Just over 31 minutes on the clock, and now back to the battle for supremacy in the European Champions Clubs Cross Country. And it is Jacqueline Rotic who's going to take the honours individually. It is a gold medal for her. It's probably 2 gold medals. Probably team gold also to follow for Rotic, but she leads home Elvini Nimbona as we see confirmation now of that senior women's result. Miriam Sherop from Kenya taking overall victory in the Almond Blossom International Cross Country. Jacqueline Rotic then leading the way home just behind her. So just one more individual race left to come, and it is the senior men's, and there is lots of talent in here. Rodriga Quizera plays the Castillon. Certainly both of them will be featuring very strongly. Should be. Oscar Chilimo as well. Countdown is almost over for these athletes who have been standing, twitching, nervously waiting for the start of this senior men's race at the European Champion Clubs Cross Country. They just intimidate some of the others into going out fast. We'll see how fast they want to go out. As we've seen in previous races, it has tended to be the case where the athletes who are cut above the field have tended to wait until the latter half before exerting their supremacy. We'll see what exactly happens here as they run through the first 100 metres or so, and expect to see the green vest of Playa de Castellón featuring very strongly here. To have Benfica and Sporting go top 2 in the relay, but given the strength that's in there against them, that might prove quite a difficult assignment, you'd have to imagine. And given the strength that is in the Playa de Castellón team, it's also going to prove quite difficult. But early on here, as we go through the first few 100 metres, but he's currently just sitting back there in 3rd at the moment on Playas Castellón, and he'll be quite comfortable at the moment, Ndika Wanayo. He's a 12:47 5,000 meter man on the track. That was in Oslo last year. 26:49 national record for Spain. That is still the Spanish 10,000 meter record. He ran at the Paris Olympics, Ndika Wanayo, a year and a half ago or so now. But he will fancy his chances, not just of team gold, but also individual gold. But last year, that was the man who is his clubmate, Rodrigo Quizera. Trained together, the two of them, under coach Luis Tolba. They just complete the first lap, and as we see, it is the man who took victory in 2023 individually and 2025, Rodrigo Quizera, native of Burundi. And Quizera is very accomplished, the 26-year-old. Set the national record for Burundi for 10 kilometers on the road last year over in Germany, in Herzegovina. But he has had so many great performances. Ndika Wanayo, I think he's just sitting in at the moment there, back in 4th, 5th position. And a very notable run at the World Cross Country Championships as well last month, just about 4 weeks ago now, in Tallahassee in Florida. He finished 8th over there, and he's since finished 4th at the Cross Country Tour event in El Goibar against the accomplished international field there. The likes of Barihu Aragawi took victory, and you can just see Ndika Wanayo kind of just keeping tabs really on the leaders at the moment. The likes of Quizera, his clubmate, the likes of Charles Rotich. But it's kind of that point in a cross-country race where you can't win the race, but you can certainly lose it if you get things wrong on the second of 5 laps. So, lap 3 in the senior men's race, and it is starting to really splinter now up front. In this kind of concertina effect, I suppose, where it stretches out and then comes back together almost like an accordion. But at the moment, these men, it looks like a group of 5 starting to break away up front. So there we have confirmation. Charles Rotich coming through. Rodrigo Quizera in second, Victor Kimasop of Benfica, back in third, and Oscar Chilimo, the Ugandan running for the Italian club, back in fourth. There's the Castillon club, and Quizera digging in here. He's kind of opted out, or had to opt out of certain championships in recent years in terms of his native country, Burundi, because of course the longer, the most up-to-date competition you have on your results there is a waiting period enforced. And so he's been in the process of declaring his allegiance for Spain in recent years. He's still awaiting that. It is Playas de Castellón against Atletica Casone. It is the Spanish club against the Italian club. And it is a native of Burundi and a native of Uganda. And they are taking each other on here. Two countries that have produced so many great distance runners over the years and have such a strong bearing at events like the World Cross Country Championships. And Chilimo, I mentioned, he's well known as a track runner, but also very diverse in his abilities. And it looks like a head-to-head match. I'm not sure why Chilimo is really looking at his watch there, because there's not too much time pressure on here, and I'm not sure it really matters in cross country when you're running on a different surface and different undulations. What valuable information you could really be getting from a watch at this part of the race, but perhaps it's just the force of habit. And he is applying plenty pressure, trying to break Rodrigo Quizera, but having finished second 3 times, Oscar Chilimo in 2022, 23 and 24. Today he's running for Playas de Castellón, and he has injected a vicious surge there with about 1 kilometer to run, and he is pulled well clear of Oscar Chilimo, and he looks to be on his way to gold. Quizera looks like he's going to do it yet again. This will make it 4 titles at the European Champion Clubs cross country in just 5 years. And here, as we see, Rodrigo Quizera, a 26-year-old, is on his way to yet another victory at the European Champion Clubs cross country. Oscar Chilimo looks to be headed for another silver. Let's see who it is who manages to get the bronze. Although you never know, Chelimo, now that he's been broken in that battle for silver, so often athletes can just, physically or mentally, whichever it is more, they can often just fall apart a little when the gold is gone. And the gold is gone, and it's headed to this man, Rodrigo Quezera of Playas Castellon. He climbs that little mini hill, and at the top of it, he just uses the opportunity to take a look around. I'm sure his coach would have preferred if he'd do that on flat terrain, given it can all be a little tricky. But by now, Rodrigo Quezera is very much in celebration mode. He was third in this race in 2024, but he took victory in 2022, 2023, and 2025. And now in 2026, Rodrigo Quezera, his lap of honour is very much already underway with about 100 metres to run. The 26-year-old, he was 7th in the World Championships 2.5 years ago in Budapest. He was 8th at the World Cross Country Championships in 2023. And for the 4th time, Rodrigo Quezera is on his way to victory and the senior men's title at the European Champions Clubs Cross Country. And it looks like he's also going to lead his club, Playas de Castellon, to gold. Silver is going to go to Oscar Chelimo, the Ugandan running for the Italian club Atletica Casone Noceto. He takes second, and then it is Charles Rotich, the Sporting Club athlete, Portuguese club. He's a Kenyan native. He comes through for individual bronze. And Ndiko Manaya just couldn't really land a blow in this event. But his club mate, his training partner, and good confirmation there of the senior men's result, Rodrigo Quezera, once again taking victory. What a commanding performance it was. Oscar Chelimo in second, and it was Charles Rotich back in third, taking the bronze. 8 teams going to the line in the mixed relay, which is the final event, the 2026 European Champion Clubs Cross Country. SL Benfica, Sporting Club de Portugal, DMA, which stands for Dessiné Mesure Athlétisme, from France. From Ireland, Dublin City Harriers. They're also in there. 8 teams, but the one that will be heavily favoured for victory, and I don't think that's an exaggeration, is SL Benfica. Sport Lisboa Benfica. They're better known, of course, in football and athletics terms, just as Benfica, but they possess 2 weapons in terms of middle distance running for this relay, in the form of Isaac Nader, the world 1500 meter champion, and of course his partner Salome Afonso, who was a 2-time medalist at the European Indoors last year, a world finalist over 1500 meters last year. She finished 12th there, and it'll be fascinating to see how she goes and how they lay out their order of competitor here, because athletes, interesting to see the strategy that they go with here, because it looks as if Benfica have not put Nader on the opening leg, and they had to only declare their competing athletes with 90 minutes to go, the deadline. But recently third at the Portuguese Championships on the road, over 10 kilometers, 28-23 there. So Barros, certainly an athlete who's going to be strong enough to keep them in this race. It is Nuno Pereira there of Sporting Club de Portugal, and it is Kino Boyle from NS Track. Go into those turns at pace, they tend to come out at pace as well, and it's just very hard to get into a rhythm. That's why technical courses can be that little bit harder to close those gaps, but we see the pace is really on now up front, and it is Sporting Club Braga, it looks like, their red vest. And it is indeed Benfica's Edson Barros there, and Nuno Pereira was there, who was powering through. But it is in the final event of the day. It's a Portuguese 1-2 at the moment for the clubs in the mixed relay. But how much of a race can they make it? Final few bumps in the road, or bumps on the course. Teresia Guetteri is going to be handing over to Isaac Nader. This is the second last turn, almost a 90-degree turn. A lot of athletes there we've seen throughout the day stealing a quick look, and the wristband is off. She's taking it off her wrist with about 100 meters to run now for Guetteri. She will see Isaac Nader waiting in that red vest of Benfica. SL Benfica, and there is the world 1500 meter champion Isaac Nader, and he sets out with absolute intention. There is 8 seconds it is back to Sporting, the other Portuguese club, and then another 4 seconds back to DMA from France, who are just a few seconds ahead of NS Track in that battle for silver and bronze. He was a Moroccan dad, his mum's Portuguese. He was born in Faro, just about 40 kilometers away from here, and he has really put Portuguese athletics back on the map at the very highest level in recent years. And he hands over to his girlfriend, Salome Alfonso, and Alfonso have quite a considerable advantage now over Sporting Club de Portugal, 15 seconds in arrears, and Alfonso, believe me, is not the kind of athlete who would surrender that very easily, because Alfonso is a truly accomplished performer as well. Brilliant shots there with the drone of Salome Alfonso, who is continuing to attack this race. She knows that the gold is secured. She's got 10 seconds to spare over Sporting, and it is Purity Chepkarui, the Kenyan, running for Sporting Club de Portugal, who is carrying them to second and is running a strong leg. She's got 14 seconds to spare over Dessine Mesure Athletisme back in third. Capucine Rolin is running the final leg for them. And then further back, Dublin City Harriers back in fourth, and it is Lucy Holmes on the anchor leg for them. So Playas Castillon now down to fifth at that checkpoint, and NS Track back in sixth. So of the Irish clubs, looks like Dublin City have the better chance of getting amongst the medals, but can Lucy Holmes haul them up to fourth? She is chasing hard Capucine Rolin and has got quite a few seconds to make up yet, but that battle for bronze is still very much alive. It looks like Sporting Club de Portugal with Purity Chepkarui are pretty safe in second. Big gap back to third, and a big gap out front as well for Salome Alfonso, who, look at that, that is a brilliant shot. Side on to those little hills, small bumps on the course, and she just attacks them and runs down off the other side. And I think that advantage, if anything, has extended as well, as we see Purity Chepkarui on this final leg, and into the home straight. Salome Alfonso is on her way to glory. The hard work was done before she got that wristband. Her teammates Edson Barros, Teresia Gatteri, and her boyfriend Isaac Nader, they put her in the brilliant position, but Salome Alfonso has brought it home for Portugal and for Benfica. It is a wonderful way to round out proceedings at the European Champion Clubs Cross Country, and in the mixed relay it is Benfica who are a class apart. Silver goes to Sporting Club de Portugal. It is DMA, Dessine Mesure Athletisme, who hang on. Capucine Rolin running a brilliant leg there, just about hold on by a few seconds ahead of Dublin City Harriers. But gold goes to Benfica, no surprises there. Nader, Barros, Afonso and Gatteri, just too good for the others. They come home with 16 seconds to spare over Sporting Club de Portugal. And then bronze goes to the French club, Dessine Mesure Athletisme. Information of the result in that mixed relay. And a truly dominant win it was for Benfica. And Rui Costa, the technical director, had mentioned that that would be the icing on the cake if they could go 1-2 with Benfica and Sporting in that mixed relay, and indeed they managed to do that.
Hi, I'm Nadia Batogritti. Sign up now to the European Athletics YouTube channel.